Nazara. Imagine you have been invited by the universe to be one of the handful of people on Earth who know about Nazara law, and you are asked to promote it to help raise Earth consciousness to end war and live in abundance, which is our birthright, health, freedom and prosperity. There are actually millions of people on Earth who know about Nazara law and are working to bring it to fruition, but they all have a gag order in place and they are instructed to behave as if they have no idea who you are. If they break the gag order, not only will they be killed, but so will their family members. Also, many affluent people who are the few controlling the many will produce websites debunking Nazara law and will launch personal attacks on you which will last years. It sounds almost like a conspiracy theory. It happened to me. I'm sure after a quick look around the internet you may be wondering how I can think it is real? Who gave the bankers and Wall Street companies a $700 trillion bailout? Do you believe that is real? Millions of Occupy America protesters do believe that is real. It is real. All of the corruption, the government working in collusion with the banks to take away our land and take us deep into poverty, that is real. Nazara law was written as a remedy for a lawsuit that the farmers filed, and it was taken all the way through the Supreme Court. Please read through and it will begin to make sense to you. I invite you to sign the Nazara White House petition designed to invite President Obama to announce thereby enact Nazara law. Elizabeth Trotwin signed the Nazara petition here. Long before Nazara, a project was born to restore the United States of America to its original Constitution of the Republic, and to remove the structure of the corporate United States. This project began in the early 1950s and involved intelligent and patriotic minds of both civilian and military background. These people over the years became known as the White Knights. Out of this restoration process came the prosperity programs, the farmer claims, and finally Nazara. The children of the wealthy families on our planet became concerned about the future of our civilization, when they observed the poverty, disease, starvation and suffering of the masses. They saw the imbalance between the wealth of the few and the destitution of the many, and agreed among themselves to try to correct it. 100 of these wealthy children, who came to be known as wealthy visionaries, put $1 million each, of their money, into investment programs in the 1980s called roll programs to generate funds to be used for humanitarian purposes. Thus, the prosperity programs were born. Gradually, news of this spread to the public and millions of people invested small amounts of their meager funds to aid in these various prosperity programs' success. Also, during the 1970s and 1980s many U.S. farmers were losing their land, machinery, buildings, and cattle due to fraudulent foreclosures by the Federal Reserve banks, in cooperation with the IRS. Many farmers joined forces and brought a class action lawsuit against the U.S. government, the non-federal Federal Reserve Bank, and the IRS, for fraud against the farmers. David E. Robinson from his book Nazara. What is Nazara? National Economic Security and Reformation Act. Is Nazara for real? I can assure you that Nazara, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, is for real. I say that because I and my colleagues have talked to Bill Clinton, King of Swords, Coase, Ashtar, Mother Sekhmet, Lady Mastnada and 14 members of Congress who contributed their expertise to crafting various sections of the law, not a bill. Coase and SEAL teams recently moved the original signed document to a safer place so it will be available to Lady Mastnada when she makes her TV announcement. Nazara, National Economic Security and Reformation Act, was signed into law by Bill Clinton in October 2000, but sealed from any attempt to prove its existence until it is announced, at which time it becomes fully enacted. What are your sources on Nazara? What I know comes from Faction 3 Intelligence, which is 38 levels above the President, which involves Coase, ASIO, Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization, of which I am a member, Ashtar Command, Ascended Masters, Mother Sekhmet, the President of the Solar Tribunal, and White Knights within the top levels of government and intelligence. One of my friends was originally contacted by the team of 100 wealthy visionaries over 33 years ago and asked to help get the word out and be a liaison between parties. My friend, Rama Arjuna, who is Ashtar's incarnated son, was contacted by Ashtar to combine their efforts with Co's in 1979 to help bring this to announcement. All of these folks are real and backed up by Galactic Federation support, around the world in every country. The sources of our information come from both alternative broadcast media like Air America Radio, local media personalities and, most importantly, from those at 38 levels above the president in the ACO SEAL Delta Team's King of Swords, King of Egypt, code names of course, Mother Sekhmet through direct channeling, OAB meetings with Ashtar, Sananda, Ascended Masters on the starships and Solar Tribunal councils. COS has an encrypted telephone network through which he sends people messages to get information out to the public. He is based in D.C. and was appointed with Saint Germain by the World Court in 1999 as head of the worldwide militia of over 4 million, and is a high-ranking member of the Secret Service. One source was approached more than 33 years ago by the wealthy visionaries and asked to assist with what became Nazara. She has continued with that work to this moment. And, no, this is not Dove. Rama goes up to the ships almost every night to work with Mother Sekhmet, and many others. We are all dedicated to getting Nazara announced and bringing the new republic into full manifestation and to full planetary ascension. Our summaries are sent to a very small circle of close friends. We try to only include what we have personal knowledge of, even though like everyone else information comes in dribs and drabs and some questions and exact times will not be answered until it is safe to do so. I mention the designations of those we get info from, even though some congressmen have checked political records. Some are double agents and will soon decloak and spill the beans as to their roles. Filters are about to be cleared and new mission assignments will be downloaded, internally, to each of us as these current events transpire. I should mention that many existing leaders may well surrender their vehicles to fully awakened galactic walk-ins. This has already happened in many cases. In addition to the hundreds of involuntarily cabal-cloned stand-ins we see on TV. What does Nazara mandate? The Illuminati controllers will do anything to prevent its implementation, as it immediately spells their removals from political and economic control over the people and resources of this planet. It requires full return to constitutional and common law principles by 190 countries starting with the U.S. It involves due to present fraudulent practices, mortgage debt forgiveness, cancellation of all credit card debt, student loan forgiveness, and IRS collection of income tax, and substitutes a national sales tax on non-essential items only, with no tax on food, medicines or used goods. It requires all existing congressional, administrative heads to resign. All lawyers would have to take a 30-day constitutional law course, as statute laws will be dissolved. The world economic system will shift to transparent operations. Basel II was implemented in the month of April. Precious metals-backed currency and the Federal Reserve and its collection agent, IRS, and most corrupt alphabet agencies will be dissolved. Current Federal Reserve notes will be exchanged for U.S. Treasury bills backed by gold, silver or precious metals on a $1 for $1 basis. Special trusts and 78 programs, which were originally created by Saint Germain over 200 years ago for this time, will provide the means to offer free education to all and assist all in upgrading quality of life. Suppressed technologies, secretly being used by the controllers, will be made available to the public. These provide clean and unlimited power for home, industry and travel. Replicators will be made available with first contact landings to provide most items. There will be a worldwide re-indexing of currencies, 30 days after announcement, so that while you now receive $100 income and pay sales taxes and income taxes on that amount, you will only pay sales taxes on $10 when spent for non-essential items after re-indexing. This is to remove much of false inflation from the prices of goods caused by use of fiat money instead of precious metals-backed currency. Peace is a requirement and no more wars or nuclear weapons will be allowed. The methods and means to achieve this are already in place and can be implemented upon a single command. A single molecular change in the nuclear process will make all existing nuclear processes benign. Galactic human teams will clean up air, water, soil and toxic contamination in the first 2 months following announcement. Polluting industries will no longer be necessary as their replacements will be non-polluting and the old plants will be removed by processes that recycle the energies. Benefactor programs will become available and gifting programs are extensive and worldwide to ensure that all will experience unprecedented opportunity to make new choices for their future occupations, and enhanced learning programs will be available to quickly upgrade or learn new skills. Diagnostic healing methods and technologies will become available to reverse all medical conditions and restore optimal health. All these technologies and methods presently exist. Many others have been suppressed but will be brought forth for all to benefit from. Our new financial foundation has already been laid and is being powered up now. Saint Germain and Kuthumi are in charge of that aspect. Massive arrests and millions of starships will be decloaking over all the major cities on the planet. That will be followed by direct broadcasts from all satellites, connected by nanites to the bridge of the New Jerusalem, the flagship of the Galactic Federation, with messages from Ashtar and Sananda. First contact landings will occur within 728 days following Nazara's announcement. This is why the Nazara petition and the disclosure petition are intrinsically connected. An interim government will be in place with full revelations of the truth about our origins and the galactic presence that has been actively kept from us for over 70 years. Everyone will be told what to expect next, and all areas of life will be invited to participate and share in the abundance free from credit card, mortgage, student loan debts. With no IRS, no war, all military brought home immediately and given positive new employment and educational options. Constitutional common law will be fully restored. Peace will be declared. Skies, water, air, land will be cleared of all toxic substances and all DNA is being raised to higher awareness. Everyone will experience an increase in quality of life, no matter what age. Enhanced educational opportunities will become freely available along with enhanced medical care, and a new worldwide communications system, Internet 5, will begin to replace existing communications systems. Zero pollution energy systems will become commonplace along with new transportation methods. New housing methods will quickly be introduced and congestion in cities will no longer be necessary as new transportation innovations will not require roads or petroleum products. There will be a national sales tax payable only on non-essentials, with food and medicines, medical treatments non-taxable. Within 30 days of Nazara's announcement there will be a worldwide re-indexing of currencies on a 1:10 ratio, which will mean that a 10% sales tax on $100 equals $10 versus $1,000 by 10% equals $100. A major savings for each of us. This is needed to wring out the inflation caused by fiat worthless paper currencies worldwide. These funds and others will result in the end all poverty on the planet within a 12-15 month period. That will then ensure that all will have the opportunity to receive spiritual education about who we all are, our purpose here as an expression of source essence and physicality. Who has the power to announce and enforce Nazara? COS has the de facto authority, granted by the International Court of Justice at The Hague in 1999, to get Nazara announced and the power to use his martial law authority as needed. Lady Mastanada, previously appointed by the ICJ World Court as International Special Prosecutor with authority to take whatever actions are required, including dissolving our Supreme Court and unsealing all 10,000 indictments and ordering arrests, is by the top officer of the World Court and can override any order of that or any other court. As President of the Solar Tribunal and as Nazara's postal lady, she is the only one who can order Nazara's announcement and authorize deliveries of funds. We are at this moment actually under the joint jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice World Court and the President of the Solar Tribunal, Lady Mastanada, who has been appointed by the ICJ as special prosecutor with power to arrest the indicted ones, dissolve our corrupt judiciary and announce Nazara. Agents from Interpol and ICJ are present in DC along with the 82nd Airborne and others. We have been well advised that galactic ships are over every major city and will decloak when the signal is given. No one gets any money until Lady Mastinada makes her announcement on TV, at which time she will tell us the date of release that will be within 72 hours of her announcement. She is special prosecutor authorized by the Solar Tribunal, of which she is president, and the ICJ. She is expected to dissolve our Supreme Court, appoint Patrick Fitzgerald as acting Attorney General and then authorize the arrests and removals of all cited ones. Many of these are now clones. The legal means to take us through this denouement was set in place in 1999 by the ICJ, at which time Saint Germain and the King of Swords, who is head of the worldwide militia of 4 million men plus 40,000 galactic humans, were given the power to prosecute and take such actions as are required to remove the corrupt ones and to ensure that the whole planet is prepared for upshift into the 5th dimension, in the short time left in this cycle. Are we under Nazara law now? The King of Swords put us inside Nazara law and saved the world banks and stock markets from crashing. We've been under ACT jurisdiction since then. So it may look like Congress has the power, that is a fiction. They are simply convicting themselves of treason. Prior to being arrested and removed, we have been inside Nazara law since October 1, 2008, and it has allowed many foundational changes to be implemented. Nazara has been divinely decreed and refined into its current form by the labors of dedicated terrestrial and celestial beings. There is only one law, and that law of the land is Nazara. There is no other law to cite. It is popularly known in DC as the Reformation Act. Anything else deals with the reach of Nazara, which is global, but which starts here. We have been inside Nazara law since the 10th of February 2008. King of Swords has sent in teams of his men to each of the banks, and about 99% of the infrastructure is ready to go on receipt of a signal from Ashtar, Saint Germain and or Lady Mastinada. Mother confirmed not only that we are inside Nazara law and all that that entails, but that most of the foundational changes have been quietly set in motion since the 10th of February 2008. She rephrased that, we are in a continuous announcement unfoldment now. The next day was the day we went inside the Nazara law, not under, inside. So that gave Kos, King of Swords, the go-ahead to insert into Basel II some of the supports for Nazara. We are seeing the first fruits of Nazara law, and it is just the beginning, as each new day will continue to reveal more and more positive changes. All elected candidates will now have to be accountable for their oaths. They have been told, and Galactic Federation will ensure that any failures to honor those oaths will bring removal and replacement by authentic and honest representatives. Each day inside Nazara law is bringing the means to ensure that your benefits and your freedom to exercise your new responsibilities as leaders of the Golden Age will be enhanced and moved forward. Nazara is now the law of the land. Is Nazara being worked upon in other countries? There are people in other countries, such as the Canadian hierarchy, who have been working behind the scenes to prepare for the announcements and implementation in their country. New leaders of truth, integrity and accountability are ready to come forward in 190+ countries. What is this about a gag order? There was a gag order that prevented Congress or the media from talking about this on pain of death. It is about to be lifted. Thousands of media people have attended weeks of briefing sessions arranged by Kos and are ready to flood the media with stories as soon as the gag order is lifted. The secret Nazara law was signed by Bill Clinton in October 2000, and then sealed with a gag order on all government and media. I do not have a gag order in place. I have been asked to get the word out, and my goal is 1 million people. Don't bother to check on the internet, as that law is sealed until announced and is now protected by Lady Mastinada and the Galactic Forces, along with Faction 3 Earth-based resources under the King of Swords. What is the significance of Basel II? You remember that Bush had G7 visitors a few days before the end of the fiscal year on the 30th of September. He was told, as was Paulson, Bernanke and others, that if the money owed to them from the $300 trillion in recovered stolen funds was not paid on the 30th of September, that they would be toast. There was also a deadline of September 30th for coming into compliance with Basel II provisions, which Bush had agreed to in April 8 but had not yet complied. If certification of compliance did not occur, October 1st would require that central banks not accept funds from federal banks that day. Here's what happened: Bush failed to comply. The White Knights stepped in with program funds and saw to it that all U.S. banks were in compliance, inside Nazara law. Bush intended to declare martial law due to economic emergency. He was stopped by the Provost Marshal General and specially selected naval flag officers and placed under house arrest along with the Vice President. The G7 ultimatum which finally got this administration to implement Basel II financial standards of transparency and accountability on Monday, after very major assets were seized, included a 100-day period for full compliance in bringing all off-balance sheet assets onto the books. Since these assets were fraudulently constructed and leveraged by 30 to 150 times their actual value, they have little real value, and that requires other assets to be produced to cover the equity requirements. Since no other assets exist, the 100 days is reduced to hours, as full compliance would result in worldwide bankruptcy and criminal prosecution of all involved. The latter is unavoidable, as justice must be done. We will see every nation and every bank bankrupt as we change over to the new financial provisions which will be made available to every child, woman and man on earth. All who are illegally jailed under false laws will be released, all except violent offenders. Those ones will be offered appropriate remediation. How long has this been in the planning stages? All of the measures now culminating have been planned for hundreds of years. This is no political party scheme. This is the return of the light to the planet and the planet's ascension to the spiritual dimension by divine decree. All of the universe is involved. Trillions of spaceships are here to help. Where are the funds being kept? The true funds and documents are safely out of their reach, in Saint Germain's safe custody. Too many criminals in the banks, government and black ops intel organizations would steal the funds in a blink of an eye if the deliveries occurred prior to regime change. All of those ones will be purged from the international financial systems before any funds are inserted into the new safe system. What about the rest of us? In addition to these beneficiaries, all citizens, men, women and children, of these countries, not in any program, will receive $10 million, and forgiveness of most debt, bank credit cards, and student loans. They can expect to receive their $10 million within 72 hours after announcement. 30 days later we will have re-indexing on a 10-to-1 ratio. That means the buying power of that $10 million will actually be the equivalent in purchasing power of $100 million. Pretty impressive result. Most of the inflation of the past 30 years will have been wrung out of the market. The adjusted prices for gold, silver and platinum have already been set. Mortgage payments will be deferred for 30 days after announcement, to allow expedited application for cancellation of mortgages. Income tax will be ended and IRS will be handling refunds only. A national sales tax on non-essential, new items only will replace the income tax. You can see how no one will have to work to pay basic living expenses ever again. That frees us all from the drudgery, which will then be accomplished by new technologies, and that allows plenty of time for creative pursuits and spiritual development opportunities unprecedented in scope, supporting planetary ascension. We will no longer be in the pursuit of survival. We will be able to spend our lives on Earth focused on spiritual development, which is the whole point of being on Earth. Will any be left behind or lose out from participation in Nazara, for instance, from the drop in value of our 401 KS? No one will be left behind that chooses to trust, ask and allow the new to unfold. presenters were all very definite about not fearing loss of Social Security, 401ks, retirement benefits, supplies of food, non-toxic medical treatment, education for our children. It won't happen. Nazara is here and is ready to bring better solutions forward with our announcement. When will children be eligible to receive their benefit? New kids being born will be able to come aboard in 12-15 months. Gold will be the currency of choice. Gold will be the currency of choice for as long as we still need currency, and it is also important in the alchemy of our own ascension. What will be the impact of these programs? The arrangement is exceedingly fair and will have a predictable effect of jump-starting the new economy and technologies. Of course, anyone wanting to open a trust or create a foundation will incur fees and expenses for those professional services. 4 countries, the US, the UK, Canada and Australia, will begin the Nazara distributions within 72 hours after announcement of Nazara. Other countries are to be paid in sequential numerical order over the following 12 to 15 months. I neither created nor am involved with the administration of any of these major programs, so I can't speak on the subject of how these programs were designed or the order of payments. A few of the major programs are unlabeled and theoretically could be used to fill important needs not originally anticipated. There will be new programs after all 78 current programs pay out around the world over a 12 to 15-month initial period post-announcement. This is so much simpler than the random and complicated bookkeeping methods that were spoken of 10 years ago. This is far more generous, and yet, the amount left to do projects will still be greater than ever. Will every one of the original participants in the 78 major gifting programs receive a payout? Everyone who has been operating mostly from integrity since entering one of the major gifting programs and whose intentions are harmonious with the divine purpose will receive a payout. Anyone in these programs who has been intending or demonstrating criminally corrupt intentions and whose spiritual frequency and behavior is inimical to unity, healing, harmony and integrity will not receive a payout from their investment in the programs. How will this disqualification be determined? Coase and his people have been monitoring everyone involved in the major gifting programs for years. Irresponsible, criminal behavior or intentions has basically disqualified 1/2 of the original participants. That means there is more to be distributed in various ways by half as many people than was originally calculated. I won't cite expected amounts, but it should be clear that far more, perhaps double the original amounts, will now be available for the gifting programs and their intended humanitarian projects. Will the existing economy utterly collapse? There is a critical mass of people who now understand that big changes are required and that painful as change as we cannot try to patch the old system. It is too far gone, it's too late, and there are no resources left. In this country we are still better off than 90% of the world, where conditions are beyond the average American's comprehension. At the same time as the outer conditions collapse, we are in a profound universal situation where all are waiting for us to take our next step towards galactic citizenship. What is the fate of victims of stock market fraud? Outside of the prosperity, freedom, farm claim programs, the bad guys owe additional settlements for which they have not paid, that is, stock market fraud settlements. Will these be paid too, and will they be paid 1 for 1, or will the payments be re-indexed 90%? If so, will they be paid in the new rainbow currency that is backed by gold silver? Those obligations are of the corporation USA. In DC they have nothing to do with Nazara. The money they put into their secret offshore accounts has been recovered by the Hong Kong blondes who now work for Coase. The country settlements represent fraud theft, and none of them will get those funds. $300 trillion I be lifted from those secret accounts and back in the US now, in safe hands. Neither Wanta nor 160 nations' heads will get any of that stolen money. Saint Germain has good projects benefiting the people that will get that money. Post-announcement, the Phoenix rainbow currency will be exchangeable by US citizens, in this country, on a $1 equals $1 basis. 30 days after Nazara's announcement, all non-Nazara funds prices will be re-indexed to wring inflation out of the world economy. That will put more spendable income into the hands of citizens. How is this operation being conceived and managed? The Saint Germain World Trust brought the gold of Atlantis forward for the lightworkers of this time. One of the keys to the success of this culminated in the Saint Germain advisories, which became Nazara. Ascended Master St. Germain has watched over those funds and in addition has coordinated much gold coming here from Venus and other off-planet locations, which cumulatively now equal $1 plus 40 zeros, which is sufficient to provide $10 million to each man, woman and child after Nazara's announcement. These funds and others will result in the end all poverty on the planet within a 12 to 15-month period. Some logarithms from Saint Germain have been mathematically modeled through matrices to develop self-replenishing ways to keep generating income and participation for as long as needed. I've seen those matrix examples and they can do what is needed to fund governments and people and projects indefinitely. There is no need for any anxiety or fear. All has been prepared and solutions to all the major challenges of food, shelter, income, education and safety are included in Nazara's provisions. What about the impact of matters like the bailout on Nazara? When Bush signed that bogus bailout bill, it did not become law. He was under house arrest. That was what Ashtar meant on Tuesday 10/7, when he said, bailout cancelled. Signing that bill was only a way to get him to convict himself and all who were his corrupt co-conspirators in treason. Going all the way back to 9/11. What this meant was that the congressional votes had to do with the corporation USA and not the republic, which is we the people, who are being protected and funded inside Nazara. When will the banking and economic arrangements behind Nazara be put in place? All Nazara gold and precious metals are in US banks along with our new Phoenix currency, and we are compliant with Basel II since October 1st. New banking and economic systems are now in place. Coase has sent in teams of his men to each of the banks and about 99% of the infrastructure is ready to go on receipt of a signal from Ashtar, Saint Germain and Our Lady Master Nada. When is all this likely to be announced? Soon. Be cautious about anyone giving an exact date for actions. That should be seriously questioned. We will know when these events are happening, be assured of that. Signing the Nazara petition is one of the most important things anyone can do to bring the announcement into fruition. wh.gov web link. We have been inside Nazara law since October 2nd because his authority and direction. Much is being done to purge the financial systems of tinkering vulnerabilities. That has progressed significantly and will be ready when needed. Mother Sekhmet confirmed not only that we are inside Nazara law and all that that entails, but that most of the foundational changes have been quietly set in motion since October 2nd. We are not waiting for inauguration. Tying all these loose ends together, 9/11 treason, the role of the Vatican Pope, war crimes, financial fraud on unbelievable level, peace across the planet, truth about galactic presence and assistance throughout all times and ages, truth about all the clones, holograms of all types, complicity of their media, the rogue intelligence harassment of citizens, and criminal collusion and corruption with all government heads. We have been told there are two things prerequisite to Nazara's announcement. They are, Cybele Edmonds' testimony about 9/11 and the lifting of the cover-up about the galactic presence in our skies, over every major city on the planet. The 2, 4-day, Earth-based meetings in Europe and Ramsala, along with solar tribunal meetings on Saturn, and currently in D.C., produced a statement from both the King of Egypt and associates of the King of Swords, all of whom worked together, since being in service together during the Vietnam War, at the 38th level above the President. That statement was quite specific. All the alphabet agencies known, and a few most do not know, have White Knight assets inside. Those White Knights along with about 40,000 fully awake and aware galactic humans will combine with complements in the military to bring about and support the needed changes. The Ascended Masters are now present. It is obvious to any informed observer that any large sums paid to anyone at this time would put their lives in extreme danger as well as result in the funds being stolen. That is one of the imperative reasons for no distributions until after regime change and Lady Masternado addresses us on TV. All the preparations are now complete. When the first TV address is heard, the removals will all have been accomplished. This is a worldwide restoration of freedom, honesty and abundance. Gold in the amount of $1 plus 40 zeros has been recovered and includes gold and precious metals from many other planets. These funds have been accumulating in master trusts for the last 200 plus years through the stewardship of Saint Germain. Over 200 banks and safe depositories are involved worldwide in these programs. All but the master criminals and confederates will have greater abundance, opportunities and assistance in all areas: medical, educational, expanded spiritual awareness, political expression, and so many other areas that will be possible when peace is established. The means is already in place and can be accomplished by a single command. What is the cabal doing to prevent its announcement? The Bush crime family and cohorts have tried everything, including the demolition of the Twin Towers and other 9/11 related events, to see to it that the announcement would never be allowed to occur. They have failed, but their efforts have delayed parts of the program until now. There are disinformation damage control teams who have planted bait on the internet. Their websites were made by people who got tired of waiting for announcement, turned bitter, and then became pawns for cabal disinformation and damage control efforts. But the announcement is coming soon. In earlier actions it was noted that moles existed in many agencies including the U.S. Marshals, and those insiders consistently gave advance notice to bankers and administrative heads whenever arrests or other legal actions were scheduled. Mother confirmed that all such ones have been removed and will no longer be an impediment as the above actions prepare the way for massive arrests of indicted ones. Any fund transfers intended to subvert Nazara or steal the so-called settlement funds will be intercepted and given over to Saint Germain and the criminals removed. They are being electronically tagged and will be bagged on a single command. Many are already missing in action. This is crunch time for the tricksters. Are the so-called packages legitimate? Do not be concerned with Casper et al.'s emphasis on packages being delivered before Nazara is announced. That is a Bush SR ruse to disappoint and distract light workers. Anyone receiving anything purporting to be a package, before Lady Masternado announces on TV the delivery schedule, should be aware that it is likely an invitation to sign papers that will put their lives in danger. This is the way the dark side works. Take a legitimate program and the lists of beneficiaries which they have gotten access to, and send out trial balloons to see how many gullible ones they can snare, steal their funds, and then entice them offshore and then dispose of them. For the protection of the funds, the beneficiaries and all the purposes for which those funds are intended, no payments will be allowed until the corrupt criminals are removed. We have been watching the arrests and trials of these dark ones for over 2 years now. That is one of the imperative reasons for no distributions until after regime change and Lady Masternado addresses us on TV. How does the announcement of Nazara fit into the general flow of events leading up to first contact? When regime changes, 9/11 exposure by Cybele Edmonds, in final negotiations for TV address at this moment, and revelations of the galactic UFO presence will forever dissolve the cabal cover-up or suppression of these facts. We will all then get an experience of upshift by a half-step. This upshift could have taken many lifetimes of spiritual progress to accomplish, but has been decreed by the grace of Source to each of us. Therewith most if not all will remember our core resonance with the spiritual dimensions, and the most hearts will open to that knowledge, already present. This experience will be so awesome that most will want to stay home from work, school or whatever the next day or 3, to process this experience. Since this will coincide with Nazara's announcement and 36 plus hours of TV radio broadcasts of economic, political and spiritual information, which will be quite dramatic to most. It has been known but suppressed by the cabal for eons of time to keep us in ignorance and separation from our source awareness. People hearing these broadcasts will quickly learn that debt is going to be forgiven and that net income will be increased through elimination of the IRS, income taxes and credit card debt with Nazara's announcement and all the positive improvements it supports. Can you give me an example of a country acting on its knowledge of Nazara? Yes. The news in Iceland recently was that they are bankrupt, but will refuse bailout funds. They know that they will come inside Nazara's funding provisions, so they are allowing their corporate bankruptcy to proceed. What about something called country settlement payments? Will they take place? There are bogus country settlement payments that the banksters would like you to believe in. They are bogus. No such payments will be going to the crooks. I repeat, country settlement payments will not take place. Those funds will be used for the benefit of all peoples on the planet. What will happen to the Federal Reserve and IRS? Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul are submitting legislation to put the Federal Reserve under the U.S. Treasury and write off all that false debt that is income for the Bushes and cabal associates. And end IRS collections. The Federal Reserve has been folded into the U.S. Treasury, and all the gold and Phoenix, precious metal-backed currency, is in the banks now. The U.S. Treasury is already taking over many functions of the Federal Reserve. The IRS is kaput, gone, dissolved, except for refunds, awaiting public announcements. What will happen to the banks? The general direction of the economy is downward as we are approaching the point where the full off-balance sheet amounts of derivatives are going to have to be dealt with. $2,000 trillion estimated. Since they amount to more than all the bank's assets income in the world, a wholesale bust or bankruptcy is inevitable. That involves banks, stock bond markets, hedge funds, pension funds, 401k investments and most mutual funds. Since these are insured by insurance companies, they also will have to face the facts that they don't have enough reserves to pay claims. Nationalization of the major banks is likely. That would allow the governments to take them over, clean them out of the criminals and shadow banking practices, and write off the mostly worthless derivatives, keeping only the true asset-based investments. They will then reopen as US Treasury banks backed by precious metals and without fractional banking. Big box banks are very likely to become nationalized so they can be disinfected from their toxic derivatives estimated to be as much as $2,000 trillion worldwide. What will happen to the euro? The stock market? The euro is going to go sliding downward. Only gold-silver will hold value. The stock market has not yet realized the magnitude of the unfunded debt of the world. It is impossible to ever pay it back. So bankruptcy is the only option for the cabal. And, as we have been saying, that has nothing to do with the Republic, which is fully funded by Nazara and which is already in the announcement stage, even though not yet formally announced. What is the validity of all these discussions of package deliveries? Casper Puff reports what is fed to him by Faction 1 and 2 sources. 1/3 is based on partial truths but spun to confuse and keep folks looking for packages that will never come until after Nazara is announced. Anyone receiving anything purporting to be a package before Lady Master Nada announces on TV the delivery schedule should be aware that it is likely an invitation to sign papers that will put their lives in danger. This is the way the dark side works. Take a legitimate program and the lists of beneficiaries which they have gotten access to, and send out trial balloons to see how many gullible ones they can snare, steal their funds, and then entice them offshore and then dispose of them. For the protection of the funds, the beneficiaries and all the purposes for which those funds are intended, no payments will be allowed until the corrupt criminals are removed. Any fund transfers intended to subvert Nazara or steal the so-called settlement funds, will be intercepted and given over to Saint Germain and the criminals removed. I have heard of major gifting programs or numbered programs connected with original investors. What are these and how will they work? Only programs completed before the end of 1999 will pay out. However, everyone will still get $10 million. The 78 major programs are funds designed for huge projects. Recipients will be contributing $10 million to each one on their lists of an estimated 200 people. There are bogus settlement payments that the banksters would like you to believe in. They are bogus and no such payments will be going to the crooks. Same is true of the packages touted by a few Faction 2 bankster shills. People that invested in the 78 programs before the end of 1999 are legitimate program recipients and will be charged with supervising projects and distributions of the funds entrusted to them. Each program has specific instructions that will be included in those document deliveries. Those designated participants in the 78 original and existing numbered programs will receive large amounts to facilitate huge humanitarian projects. These are people who invested in the original 78 programs before the end of 1999. They are legitimate program recipients and will be charged with supervising projects and distributions of the funds entrusted to them. Each program has specific instructions that will be included in those document deliveries. All major programs in all countries will be completed over 12 to 15 months maximum, except for the first 4. People in the programs will receive many hundreds of billions which is an understatement, of which they will be mandatorily gifting a small percentage of $10 million to each one on their lists of an estimated 200 people. All the lists will be cross-compared to ensure that everyone gets that amount. There will not be any duplications as each gifting list will be recorded so no one is left out and no one gets paid twice. Of course, the main purpose of these programs is to level the economic playing field and to fund massive humanitarian projects around the world. In addition, other amounts could be donated, if the recipient chooses. I'm only talking about the mandatory gifting amounts. Clarifying instructions and examples will be included in the major program package instructions each will receive. Different programs have different requirements but all will participate in this gifting distribution. What will be happening to the last cabal in these days ahead? Ashtar stated on the 18th of November, Nazara is now the law of the land. Black Ops funding is being cancelled and certain Black Ops programs are being dismantled and shut down. Many foundation changes are already being implemented. House arrest of the leaders of 195 countries has been necessary as part of the changes. Ashtar said that the funding for the Black Ops programs have been shut down permanently. Blackwater troops are ready to seek other work as they are not being paid what is owed to them. Cabal Black Ops programs are being defunded and will no longer have their drug money to fund them. No solid hologram will actually take office. Although Bush, Cheney, Paulson, Hillary, and many more in Congress and elsewhere in government and banking are now just that. Pashkat warriors are paying business calls on the 13 elder dragon families. These calls are also happening to Blackwater, Halliburton and many others. All false intel stories about Obama or any appointees will be exposed. Do not think that any solid holograms will be taking office. With the announcement, the power to sustain those ones will be withdrawn and they will fizzle out. The war crimes arrests for 9/11 involvement will be quite broad and quite extensive. Likewise for acts of treason. These are critical elements of justice that must be allowed to fulfill planetary and universal legal requirements. The truth must be told with purity, clarity and exactness. Most of us are well aware that all political, religious, economic, sciences and histories have been manipulated and distorted for purposes of control throughout the ages. That ends now. The most important lies have been the withholding of our own origins, purposes and potentials for the purpose of enslavement and prevention of planetary ascension. This will be one of the most amazing revelations of all times. On October 30th, in Asheville, NC, CH13, WSO. Locals were surprised to see huge movements of large military aircraft painted black into the local area. CIA, FBI in large numbers filled the area, and then thousands of business-suited prisoners in handcuffs and leg shackles were loaded on the planes in the wee hours of the night. Those planes were headed for The Hague, and the prisoners were said to be 10,000 bankers and associates indicted by Patrick Fitzgerald's 56 grand juries meeting over the last 3+ years. It was obvious that a federal judge had unsealed those indictments. Ashtar mentioned the King of Egypt as an adept who had accomplished miracles. We understood that he was referring to the Khou's masterful orchestration and coordination of all that was required to effect the success of the arrests, and the transport to Europe of all those corrupt ones, for formal trial in The Hague. Ashtar told us that those ones will not be returning. They will be joined by Illuminati families as in lines of control, and minions, and their programs of control of the people of this planet are already being dismantled and shut down permanently. We are seeing the first fruits of Nazara law, and it is just the beginning, as each new day will continue to reveal more and more positive changes. All elected candidates will now have to be accountable for their oaths. They have been told, and Galactic Federation will ensure that any failures to honor those oaths will bring removal and replacement by authentic and honest representatives. 10,000 bankers were arrested, tried in The Hague, and executed a week ago, while holograms are in their places in the top levels of the banks, and their families will not know until after our announcement. It has taken many years of secret grand jury sifting through mountains of facts to bring 10,000+ sealed indictments to be unsealed jointly by Patrick Fitzgerald and Lady Master Nada, for serving by U.S. Marshals, the military, Interpol, and backed by the Galactic Federation ships over all our major cities now. The number comes from the 56 grand juries that met for over 3 years as part of Patrick Fitzgerald's investigations of various Illuminati-directed criminal matters. The King of Egypt is our direct source for that number and that information. It was his job to bring all of those ones indicted for treasonable offenses to Nashville, NC, where they were guarded by a team of military, CIA and FBI before being put onto large black aircraft and flown to The Hague for trial and for execution a week later. The late-night transport was reported on local TV CH13 and nowhere else. We were told by CO that they were gone. A week later, holograms were put in their places, and they are still going to work and home, until after our announcements. These ones were international criminals who stole $300 trillion and cost the lives of untold numbers. They were not white-collar criminals. Some other thousands were arrested and received average sentences of 25 years confinement in foreign facilities. We are talking about the worst of the worst. War crimes, genocide, terrorism and treason are the crimes involved. This will all come out after announcements. 100 million reptilians have been removed over the last 8 years from surface and subsurface environments. Every organization, political, religious, military, legal, media, of any magnitude, on the planet has been infiltrated and controlled by these ones, as agents of the 13 old dragon families. There has been almost complete control of every facet of existence until Faction 3, Galactic Federation, and the Ascended Masters were given permission in 1987 and 1999 to remove the controllers and assist the planet in ascending. It is only in recent days that enough of us have awakened enough to tip the balance to the light. That was by divine decree and with direct source light infusions which will continue through ascension. Something else, I may or may not have mentioned before, is that only about 50 members of Congress are still alive. Many, 480 plus, were killed and cloned, and many are solid holograms. When Ashtar Nada Sananda Mother Sekhmet Tread Greencoes say they are taking care of business, that's what they mean. Everything will be announced at once. It will already be a done deal. Massive special police operations involving 300 plus officers took place, at least 3 separate locations. Seizure and transport of safe deposit lockers to secure locations where contents of documents, drugs, money, stolen computer technologies, etc. will be inventoried, analyzed, and followed up with arrests. These sites are crucial intermediary drops for agents, criminals and other international intelligence dark ops agents. Such ops have been planned and carried out several times over the past 2 years. Often we never see evidence of it in the news. The implications will unfold in the coming days, and will trigger panic attempts to remove additional incriminating evidence from bank safe deposit facilities, which it is presumed will now be more closely monitored for just such actions. This unprecedented operation took 2 years of planning, observation and top-secret levels of police cooperation. Following Chris Story's publication of the methods, extent and names of international financial criminals, banksters, politicians' fraudulent transactions that secreted $300 trillion into private accounts, those funds have now been recovered and will be very instrumental in funding the new financial systems that Nazara requires. That these operations are now surfacing speaks clearly to the difference in this moment as compared to all those preceding 2 days. Chris Story was working for the cabal and a shill for the UK Crown. He was shot out on the street when they no longer had a use for him. These are the kind of undercover actions closing the traps that have been so carefully placed. We are going to be hearing of many more such actions that are now in process. Another example is that of the years of federal grand jury deliberations in the U.S. Those hearings have produced 10,000 sealed indictments that are about to be unsealed and served. Some of the items in those 7,000 lockboxes involve trillions of dollars in gold certificates, incriminating evidence of organized crime heads, government intel services, agents, bankster operations worldwide that hit them like a brickbat in the face. They just met to do damage control during the Bilderbergers meeting in Chantilly, VA. Make no mistake, the chainsaws are clearing the forest of liars, lies, fraud, murder, and every other despicable practice you know or never heard of. There will be shock and awe when the details can be told. Who drafted Nazara? Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul drafted certain sections of the secret Nazara law. 14 members of Congress who contributed their expertise to crafting various sections of the law. This includes Paul Wellstone, who when he was about to break his gag order was killed with his wife and daughter in a plane crash. This was a reminder to all under a gag order not to speak about Nazara law. I have received emails from these ones saying they cannot help me at all because they are under a gag order and fear for their lives. The key word is fair. Would it be fair to eliminate a $10 million mortgage on an estate or yacht purchased with laundered drug money? Or a $100 million mortgage on a building acquired by someone whose money came by defrauding investors or deliberately putting small companies out of business? Would it be fair to eradicate a $25,000 credit card debt incurred by someone who replaced last year's model of an expensive car with the latest model? Choices like that, like all other free will choices, are their responsibilities of the individuals. The differences are due to purview divergences. Our information comes from higher HQ sources, Ashtar, Sananda, Mother Sekhmet, Kos, Lady Mastanada, and Saint Germain. All below do not know what all above are planning, only general directions. You can be certain that what we have said is correct as it has come from those in charge of implementing the plan. This is not a criticism, just a different view from a higher level of involvement. How are 9/11 and Nazara related? The cabal engineered 9/11 to stop Nazara's announcement, which was scheduled for 10 minutes after the Twin Towers Pentagon power attacks. They have continued to use and expand War Powers Act-based invasions without lawful congressional actions and would, if not foiled, declare martial law to declare a dictatorship or new world order. The failure to achieve their ends, thus far, is driving them to extremes that are becoming more and more transparent as time is running out. They are losing and they know it. They will not prevail. This is due to a divine decree which is being implemented throughout this planet, solar system and universe. Dennis Kucinich, talking on Clout, Air America Radio, actually discussed what was supposed to happen on the 11th of September. An important announcement was scheduled which would change our economic and political systems. He could not use the term Nazara because of the gag order, but all who know understand that is what he was describing. At the time of 9/11 attacks, A special section of the Pentagon had just been modified for higher security protection, and that segment of the Pentagon was a special naval intelligence communications facility involved with Nazara's announcement. It was the exact target of the missile attack. Transmission of codes to central banks were already in process at the time of the attack, with the announcement less than 10 minutes away. The Pennsylvania site was an underground storage for important Nazara-related documents and was an exact targeted location. At the moment of what was called a plane crash, FEMA, FBI were already standing by in the nearby woods. They then rushed out to secure the area from other investigators. No plane crashed. Each tower was attacked by a specially prepared aircraft, modified by secret government CIA to carry missiles, and also special holographic projectors to project the illusion of the aircraft in the news releases. The Twin Towers subfloors held records and a lot of gold. The Black Ops folks had pre-installed various explosive devices and came back several weeks before 9/11 to install detonators and make electrical connections and circuit checks so that they could remotely trigger the explosions to take out the massive base supports and central columns, steal the gold, and kill any people around who could testify as to what they were doing. They didn't kill them all, as they were in a rush to load up the gold and get it away before the explosions were detonated. So there were witnesses to each of these actions. A total of 75,000 people were actually killed in those demolitions on 9/11. Certain areas were targeted to destroy records and accounts detailing liabilities of cabal firms. The announcement was scheduled for 10:15 a.m. on September 11, 2001. But that was prevented by the Twin Towers attacks, which were planned and executed by our own government's Black Ops agents. Cybele Edmonds, Valerie Plame and Joe Wilson, David Ray Griffin and many others are speaking out on this subject, which will result in the arrest and removal of Bush, Cheney, et al., with a new election coming within 6 months of Nazara's announcement. The Wisdom Economy. We are on the threshold of very major changes. On Tom Hartman's Air America radio show, Tom had Dr. David C. Corton, an economist, speaking about the bankruptcy of phantom economy, based on fiat paper. He called for an immediate change to precious metals-backed currency, leading to a wisdom economy. He then said, on the air, "I will not answer any questions on when Nazara will be announced or when disbursements will occur. All of that is speculative." Dr. Corton previously discussed these matters on Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman. Plunging stock market. The COS gave an update and said that there are variables, but that the direction was clearly downward for the stock market. These are estimates based on current knowledge only, and there are no dates or absolute down numbers. Whenever they step in and close the markets, they will also have to close the banks for 2 weeks to clean up the criminals and their practices. They would in this country then reopen the banks as U.S. Treasury banks under Nazara. That decision will be made by St. Germain. The Dow dropped 300 points in the last 30 minutes and then bounced back to 6,594, which is a lower close, and, again, it happened on high volume equals 50% greater than average. That says that the trend continues downward. Tom Hartman said that he has been saying for 5 years that the market could fall to 5,000 or even 3,000. And folks should not discount that possibility, since we know that he has access to COS and St. Germain and Lady Mastinada. The main point is not a number. It is that the trend is definitely downward, and to take whatever actions are prudent in your individual case. It is also to understand that St. Germain may not take action until it goes as low as 3,000. St. Germain gives COS his orders, and he will not tell us any exact number or date. When will Nazara occur? Lady Mastinada foreclosed on our corporate government on the 30th of September 2008 when Bush defaulted on his payments. The COS then put us inside Nazara law and saved the world banks and stock markets from crashing. We've been under ICJ jurisdiction since then. So it may look like Congress has the power. That is a fiction. They are simply convicting themselves of treason prior to being arrested and removed. What we are looking at is a surface projection shadow play. We have been inside Nazara law since October 1, 2008, and it has allowed many foundational changes to be implemented. The US is economically bankrupt, and the surface system is failing and will soon be removed. It takes a lot for people to let go of old ways and rules of how to proceed. The entrenched system doesn't care about election results. It wants to continue the old ways, which are bankrupt. We are living on two tracks at the same time, migrating from the old to the new. The overlap allows us to continue in both as our shift takes place. Most are aware that we are upgrading from carbon to a liquid diamond substructure. That shift allows us to absorb and hold more light so that our physical structures can continue existing as soul containers. The same is true of the old outer structures being infused with the new foundational structures. When Nazara is announced, the old will then fall away, like a scab on a wound, and the new will be seen to already be present. Then progress will move exponentially forward. Everything is following this model to allow the maximum preparation by all, before the announcement is made. Then public actions will take place that will remove those remnants of the old regime who have chosen not to migrate to and support the new policies. All of this preparation for war crimes prosecution has been proceeding since October 1, 2008, and Obama knows all this and also knows that Nazara is about to be announced along with 9/11 exposure and revelation of galactic presence. Sananda, Saint Germain, Maitreya, Metatron, Michael, Mother Sekhmet, and Ashtar are working tirelessly to synchronize all these actions so that the transition will be smooth and seamless. Without these preparatory steps we would have extreme shock throughout the planet. There is a critical mass of people who now understand that big changes are required and that painful as change as we cannot try to patch the old system. It is too far gone, it's too late and there are no resources left. In this country we are still better off than 90% of the world, where conditions are beyond the average American's comprehension. At the same time as the outer conditions collapse, we are in a profound universal situation where all are waiting for us to take our next step towards galactic citizenship. The changes are coming fast and furious and will be so rapid we will not be able to keep track of the number and their impacts. Watch how fast these seeming events turn around as the new administration moves to achieve critical support for its new actions. Tom Hartman opened his program with an amazing question he originated. Is the Reformation Act the solution? Can you imagine that? That is a breakthrough. Of course he didn't use Nazara, but everyone in DC and elsewhere knows what Reformation Act refers to. Very big evidence of impending news. As to timing of Nazara, they will not give us an exact date. We don't have because our sources aren't allowed to tell us the details or exact timetables. What is President Obama doing about Nazara? Barack Obama has been meeting with terrestrial and extraterrestrial councils in recent weeks, including during his vacation in Hawaii. He is our president and is also the 9th member of the Syrian Council of 9, so he has prepared himself for the last 1,000 years for the role he now will play in bringing Nazara to announcement, assisting in exposing all the war criminals involved in economic and political treason since the U.S. planned and executed travesty of 9/11. That involves international cabal families in many countries. The theft of over $100 trillion of the public's funds is also involved. Planned genocide of more than 6 billion of the world's population along with total dictatorial control of all Earth's assets has been the cabal's objective since they first came here 65 million years ago. What will happen after Nazara is announced? We will have programs in all countries that will remove the greed and provide the essentials of life to all citizens. There will be no need for artificial boundaries. Those artificial barriers come from disparity in income, education, and meaningful work. Since all of those will be answered in each country, borders will be removed as unnecessary. Of course, some of the provisions will take longer than others. Up to 12 to 15 months at the longest. However, even in these cases, all basic needs will be met rapidly. The 82nd Airborne Division is surrounding Washington, D.C. to provide security in support of Nazara law. Nazara's announcement and implementation is imminent. The return of all our troops will be the final item in the peace manifestation process. All the military stationed throughout the world will be returned home at once. The starships are easily capable of this task.